Okay. Thank you. So for the last sprint, we led DSU. I led DSU sprint planning, estimation, capacity planning. This is a screenshot of our retro from Sprint True using the DACI method, drop, add, keep, and improve. This is during the refinement stage in Sprint 3. This is a screenshot of one of the stories. This is a screenshot of one of the sprint planning as well, participating in the capacity plannings led by business and QAs. This is a screenshot of the stories in dev and committed in backlog. This is the JIRA board, one of the workshops that we completed during last sprint as well. This is the screenshot of it. This is a screenshot of one of the JIRA boards using the Epic side as icon as well. It tracks collections of related bugs and stories and tasks. This is the task board that Moji assisted us with in how to navigate a daily stand-up, all right? And I watched a retro on how to complete a video on how to complete a retro. This is also a screenshot of my interview prep as well. Next is Emmanuel. Would you like to unmute and start, please? Emmanuel, Scrum Master, would you like to unmute and start your presentation? Are you here, Emmanuel? Okay, if Emmanuel's not here, I'm going to start. Emmanuel completed that. These are the workshops that Emmanuel was a part of. Azure DevOps, capacity planning, team charter, also was a part of Scrum ceremony.
Sorry, Victoria, call the next SM if Emmanuel is not there.
Okay, bear with me. I don't know, let me just see. Vivian, are you here? Vivian, are you here?
Did send a message that she won't be able to attend.
Okay, no problem. I'm just going to read out what she's done. Is that okay? So this is an sorry,
overview. Vicky, no. Anyone that is not here, just
okay.
Let's go to the next person.
Okay. Delphine, can you unmute and start your presentation, please?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yes, Delphine. Just a brief summary of my journey at Blue Sky Internship Program from Sprint 1 to Sprint 3. Sprint 1, I was the Scrum lead for 1 week. I was at the service of all the team members, attending to their impediment, escalate the impediment to the right channels, cause the removal of impediment. Also, I wrote and posted all the report, updates, announcement, achievements so far. I also initiated a Scrum Master on call per day structure where each Scrum Master will be in charge of the team, and also initiated and organized the SM learning together, share knowledge within ourselves in Emirates and also across with Team Ruby. It was really, really positive and productive. I also participated actively in Sprint 2, where I work in close collaboration with the lead Scrum, who was Vivian. I also initiated some of the meetings we had as Sprint meetings, the team meetings, and also active participant of all the Scrum events, backlog refinement session, sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint retrospective, and sprint review. I also designed our team metrics and also capacity planning chart. And so far, in Sprint 3, I specialized more on my self-growth, trying to evaluate myself, and also learned about the Azure DevOps, did my board, also set my project board, and also structure what is necessary to be in the board. I learned also the JIRA board. So far, I would say my 90% of the goal in which I came in for the project has been achieved. And look forward to achieving the remaining 10% in the next sprint. Thank you.
Thank you, Delphine. Delphine, Martha is not here. Muyiwa, business analyst, please unmute and start your presentation. Muyiwa? Okay, so this is Muyiwa's story.
Hello.
Muyiwa, are you here?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry,
Okay, so you got 1 minute and 30 seconds to start, okay?
Okay, sorry. I'm at work. I just have to excuse myself.
Apologies, all right.
All right. This is Muyiwa Bihe. During this journey, I was able to learn how to write a user story, for the fact that this aligned with my background. I was able to know how to creatively use your idea to pass it across to the developers. I was part of the team to write a user story on announcement, on a clan card, and what's the third one? So, and I was able to use, sorry, I can't see my phone very well. I'm using phone. So I was able to write a process map on visa and applicant, the process flow on how it goes, and gap analysis, and use story on payment on prep major. So those are the artifacts there. So those are the things I can be able to say now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The rest of Muyiwa's work. All right. Victoria Owolabi, are you available to present your slides for Sprint Free?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You've got 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. During the journey, I was able to attend some workshop from Sprint 0 to 3. And part of the workshop I was able to attend is how to elicit requirements, how to process flow charts, introduction to gap analysis, and the rest. And the personal activities I was able to achieve in this program, with the help of my support of my team member, I was able to write 3 user stories on Azure DevOps. I was able to write on profile and payment method, which was card and PayPal. And I was able to work on the flow charts using Microsoft Visio. And also I was able to develop my skills in PowerPoint presentation by navigating through Microsoft PowerPoint. And during the program, I was able to set up a Jira board. Also, I was able to create epic stories and tags on Jira board while I'm still working and developing myself on wireframe and use story. The below are the screenshot of the activities I was able to do with the guidance of my team member and our tutors. And this is what I have here with me. And I'm looking forward to learn more and to see how I can work in hand with my team member and our leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Kingsley, business analyst, are you available to take your presentation? Can you unmute, please, Kingsley?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is
Tell
Kingsley.
me when to turn the pages as well, please.
So this is Kingsley. So at the beginning of this training, we've gone through some series of, we've gone through some series of workshops. Starting from elicitation, Sprint 1-2, process flow, gap analysis, user story refinement, use case, how to presentation with PowerPoint. We've also learned how to use Jira and preparation of team chatter on Miro. Can you go to the next, please?
I'm feeling better.
Next one, please. So on Team Chatter, I collaborated with my team where we built a team chatter, the purpose of our team, the role, the people involved, our value and agreements. And at the end of the team chatter, I helped in formatting the team chatter for it to look presentable and easy to consume. The next slide, please. Then I went ahead to the instructor's journey on a use case for the instructor's journey on a prep major. Here we have a simple instructor journey that has instructor, the admin, and the bank that depends on the admin. Next one, please. So on the story, overall, I was involved in 10 stories. Out of those 10 stories, 30% of them QA done, 30 is in UAT. So I have 20% in QA, 10% 10% apart on an approved and then new. Move on, please. So this is the article of the user story and some these are the screenshot of user story and some of the artifacts that are created user stories. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Miwa. Just trying to go over the next one. Bukola, are you available to take your presentation? Please unmute when you're ready, please.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Please
everyone. Hi, everyone. Good evening. This is Bukola Shofade, the BA in Emirate team. So at the beginning of this training, I've been able to create some PBIs on Azure DevOps, learn how to use Azure DevOps and navigate through the app. I've been able to write 7 user stories and acceptance criteria. And I also created a wireframe from some of the stories. I've also learned how to use Jira. I also work on my Jira. I've also practiced using process map, and I did some practical work on it. You can move to the next slide, I think, yeah. I've also practiced how to use use case. Also perfected some of my PowerPoint presentation work. Some of my stories, one of my stories is in Dawn, and I have 3 in UAT, 2 are still in BA, yeah, and 1 in Dev, I think so. So that is it from me. Thank you, everyone.
Kayode, are you ready to take your presentation? Please unmute.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. This is Kayode and Alao from Emirate team. So from the beginning, yeah, after some lectures, so I'm able to do some test cases, which I run it through the website of the test cases that of the stories that were presented to us. Next slide, please. So this is the example of the test cases that I'm able to write on for our stories through Azure DevOps. So I haven't been able to operate on Azure DevOps. So next, please. So you can see the test cases and why I do my manual testing. So I'm able to at least do my manual testing very well than when I started the program. So I can say that I can confidently do my manual test now. So you can go to this next slide, please. So you see, this is one of the tests, manual tests that failed. One of the because the invalid of my manual test that I did with the wrong password or username. So it works. So you can continue, please. So now I'll be able to at least set up my Visual Studio environment. This is one of the things that I'm able to do now very well, to be able to set up my Visual Studio environment. You can see this is one of the tests that I run in my automated testing that I was able to do, but this one in particular fails. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, please. So you see, this is the environment. The first time that I was able to set up my own environment where I was able to set up my hooks and write all my before scenario and after scenario. Next slide, please. So this is where another test that I was able to do, automated testing that passed. So this is how far that I've been able to go, and I'm hoping to be able to be much more confident in my automated testing than even this one, to hopefully to the advanced. Next, please. So this is the Jira board that I was introduced into. I was able to log into my Jira board to at least to navigate through all many areas in my Jira board. Yes, next please. Yeah. So these are the example of the test cases that I wrote. So, and all other ones will just be some additional works that I've been able to do as a QA in this sprint, on all the previous sprints up to this moment. Yes, you can go on. Yes, you can see these are the things that I was able to do. Yeah, put in QA done. Continue, please. Yeah, you can continue. These are just additional, some of my work that are in UAT now. I think I've been able to write several test cases. So you can, this is one of the board that our test board. I mean, the website that were given to us to do our test case, our test on both manual and automated tests. This particular night, I refreshed a lot, but the bug couldn't go. But the following day, I think the bug was fixed. Continue, yeah. Yeah, I think this is the hands of again, another test that I was able to do and it passed, or my automated test that I was able to do and it passed. Okay, you can go now, go on. I think I'm coming to the end of what I was able to do. So this is just part of the previous one, an example of this previous one that I've been able to do. Yeah, can continue. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, bye.
Thank you. Eniola, data analyst, are you available to present and unmute, please?
Yes, I am here.
Thank you. Please tell me when to, go next, okay?
Okay, that's fine. My name is Eniola DA from Emerald. Thank you for listening. And I'm going to start from sprint 0 to sprint 3, telling you all about what I've learned as a data analyst. In the first sprint 0, I got to be introduced to all my software that I'll be using, which is Azure Devor, which is Miro, and it was really nice to be able to create a user story on my Azure Devor. And then from there, I was introduced to Tableau. So Tableau is a very easy to use, like a visualization in data analyst, and we use it to solve complex data. And then I was introduced how to import data into Tableau, and then how to calculate numbers on Tableau, and then to aggregate my data. And then I was introduced how to use parameters in Tableau. Please, could you change it to the next slide, please? Oh, where are all my pictures? Okay, where are all my pictures? Okay, can you go back, please? Sorry, I thought I've downloaded it. Maybe they didn't take it. Okay, this is just an introduction. Okay, let's move to CQ. So in CQ, we were taught how to download our SSCQ server on our laptop, which was what we did in sprint 1, and then importing those data into our CQ. Please, could you go back? I haven't finished. Into our CQ, as you can see, and then we started decoding on CQ, and which you can see all the pictures of our coding there. And then we started with the command statement, which starts on CQ from select. We have other command statements as well. We have from, where you're taking the data from, like a cabinet where they are being filed. So you have to look into that file. So where we're getting the data from, so we have to use the specific terms for creating your coding. And then we use a concatenate to be able to join our data together, or for us to be able to combine two data together. Please, could you change to the other slide, please? So this is where the Tableau is, where we were being taught how to create scatter plots using our graph, creating our maps, and then using parameters as well to be able to create bar chart, to be able to create every other visualization that we want to do on Tableau, which is Tableau is really good for, which is for visualization of data. And then we went into leveraging the power of parameter, where you can change and manipulate your data into different things, and then aggregating and calculating using the Tableau again to calculate data. So which was made really simple by our lecturers. Please, could you move on to another? What about my Excel? Yeah. So then we moved on to Excel spreadsheet, where Excel spreadsheet, we were able to learn the VLOOK, and the VLOOK taught us about looking at data or vertically through columns, and then we looked into our data through HLOOKUPs, and HLOOKUP is through rows, and then how to bring out your F functions, and then to be able to input your data, your formulas into it. And then we did a bit of what is this one? We did a bit of creating our data of what if, and how to look for data, how to filter our data, how to search, how to do our pivot table. So the second slide shows about our pivot table. So that is all I've done. Thank you so much for listening. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Eniola. Raphael, are you able to unmute and present, please?
Yeah, hi everyone. So far, can you go to the next slide, man, please? So far we've been able to go on Excel, Tableau, SQL, and Scrum Ceremony, Azure DevOps. I've been a part of some of them. Team, Chatter, Miro, and Jira, which happened previous days. And can you go on the next one as well, please? Sorry. And on Excel, we've been able to create a pivot table and use formulas such as VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, index and match, and if functions, sum ifs, count if, and so on and so forth. And on Tableau, can you go on the next one as well? On Tableau, we'll be able to visualize and create parameters on maps, bar charts, tree map, and scattered plots. And those are the screenshots on the side. And on to the next one, please. On SQL, we'll be able to download, install, then import data, then execute some SQL queries. And on to the next one as well. I think that's it for me. Azure DevOps, Miro, Team Chat, and Jira. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Jeffrey, are you available to present and unmute, please?
Good evening, everyone. Okay, during the course of this training, we've covered quite a lot of stuff in data analysis. We've also been introduced to Azure DevOps and Jira, but I'll focus now on just what we've covered so far in data analysis classes. So we've focused on Excel, Tableau, and SQL. Can you skip to the next slide, please? Okay, in Excel class, we've done how to create pivot table, which is an interactive way of summarizing your data. And we've also learned about a lot of functions for like lookup, like VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, which VLOOKUP, you're looking up a value along a column. So along a column, and for HLOOKUP, you're looking for a value along a row. So we've also learned about index and match, learned about the if function, the if error function, the sum ifs, the count if, and average if function. Now this figure beside the description is data set that was given to us by our tutor, and it was like an assignment that we had to like work on. So this is a pivot table that's already been designed using VLOOKUP, index and match, if and if errors. Can you flip to the next slide, please? In Tableau, we've done a lot of visualization on different data sets. So we've learned how to install Tableau, learned how to import data sets on Tableau to visualize and analyze. We've also done a few data visualizations like doing maps, pie charts, tree diagram, bar charts. And we've also learned about parameters and how to use aggregate functions on Tableau. We've also learned how to analyze each sheet differently and then put it all together on a dashboard. And also learned how to save our files on our Tableau account. Can you go to the next slide, please? And in SQL, we've learned how to install, download and install SQL servers, and how to download and install SSMS, which is a SQL Server Management Studio. We've also learned how to import data sets, databases inside the SSMS, and also how to write different SQL queries. So the figure beside the description is just explain that right now we're using a select function, which is you're telling SQL what columns you want to retrieve. So we're saying that we want to select the sales order ID. Then we want to now use aggregate functions. We want to be able to calculate the total for the line total, and you use the ask to rename the column. So when you do this, then you now say from, you have to specify where you want to retrieve this data from. And if you're using aggregate function, you need to be able to use group by, because you need to be able to group the primary keys, or the group primary keys, because in the sense that, because it might be a situation whereby one particular figure appear multiple times. So if you don't use the group by, you're not grouping that primary key in one place, you just end up having errors. So that's all so far I've done in our data analysis section.
Thank you so much. Adedayo, can you unmute?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Adedayo Kiwe. Over Spring 3, and I'll probably say from 0, I've been able to join the class. It's been quite excited. I've learned so much about sprint refinement, sprint planning, sprint estimation, and I had a training on the Jira board, which is quite explanatory. Can you go to the next slide, please? I've been able to know more about writing my test cases. This is where we join the screen refinement, where we discuss with the entire BA team and the developers, and we decide on what to take forward into committed. I've been able to learn about that. Next slide, please. The Jira setup, the mentor that actually taught us so much about setting up the epics and how to set these user stories. But the aspect of testing, which actually goes with my line, was what she actually did say we might have to speak to some other tutors on that, because it's not aligned, and I quite understand. Next slide, please. This is test cases. I have collaborated with my group in writing test cases. I'm quite confident about doing this, and I've learned so much about these already. Next slide, please. The team actually, apart from the tutorial we have on the sessions, we always have our own time where we discuss about writing test cases in a view to learn more between ourselves, and it's been quite helpful. It's actually developed every one of us in the QA team. Next slide, please. On the board now is just the QA. While I was doing that, I was actually thinking of the sprint 3, because we weren't sure, maybe we're talking about the entire sprints or just the sprint 3. This focus more on the sprint 3, which is just our board. What we have at the present moment, we have a ticket just to take through. We write the test cases. We're just about doing the manual testing for it and pushing it to the QA done. Next slide, please.
On the manual test cases, I've been able to know how to write my test cases and how to test it. Moving forward, please. Next slide, please. On the board now, it's just the testing we've done, the test cases and the testing screenshots we've done on the current stage of the development. Next slide, please. Yeah, and my test automation is going quite well. I'm learning about. I've already learned about setting up my framework from scratch, from beginning to the end of it, and I've already started practicing my test cases in automation. Watch videos of my tutor Abimbola, and it's quite helpful at the minute. I just feel we probably need more time on this automation, because we've not started testing the test cases in automation style. Next slide, please. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Onome Bobson, are you available to present?
Yes, I'm available. Thank you, Victoria. Good evening, everyone. My name is Onome Bobson, data analyst. Yeah, I was able to learn about Tableau, importing data on a Tableau and data visualization. And you can see on the image displayed on there, I was able to see my files on the Tableau public account, which I've been having about, let's say, 8 to 10 views from unknown people, so which I'm proud of. So please do the next slide, please. On Excel, I was able to create a pivot table, and also I learned about VLOOKUP. I learned about functions of our SUMIF and the COUNTIF, which you can see on the slide also. Please, the next one. Lastly, I was able to learn about SQL Server, how to download, how to install, and how to download the adventure works, which I was able to do that on my own, even after the classes. And I could say I'm really proud of myself doing that on my own. Thank you. The next slide, please. Thank you. I would love to thank the whole team of Sky, the Citadel team, for the impact they've done on me, because this is the first time me going through this data analyst. So I would love to say thank you to the whole team, and also to my group also. Thank you.
Thank you, Onome. And that is it for us, team Emerald. I'll take it back to the host. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Emerald. Thank you for at least keeping almost to time. Not time, but keeping almost to time. And Victoria, I was surprised I didn't really hear time up. Are you being partial to your team? We'll find you. We'll find you.
I was.
Alrighty. Thank you for that. So we'll go straight into Ruby. Ruby, are you guys ready? I will give the general feedback at the end. So Ruby, are you ready?
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone. Nice to be here. So here is Team Ruby. My name is Daniel, and I'm presenting from my end. Team Ruby, I hope you guys are ready. So we'll get right into it. So the overview of this presentation is what we've been up to from the beginning of the internship, and then what we have been able to do. So here is my update, and here's a quick overview. So the tasks I carried out, I would say the significant ones, because I didn't really put everything, but the significant ones I feel. So setting up the Azure board with the team, we did it together. However, I was in the driving seat and they were telling me, click here, no, don't click here, delete that. Yeah, so we created the skills matrix chart. I created it myself. However, I had input from other team members as well. Laumi said, we can blow our horns a bit. So I'm trying to blow my horns a bit. So, but it's still teamwork anyways. We created the capacity planning chart. I also created that myself, which I did on Google Sheet. I facilitated different Scrum ceremonies. I facilitated a knowledge sharing session with the team and some guys from Emerald as well, where I taught some of us about how to use AI tools. most especially ChatGPT and some other AI tools for productivity, to do our task and, create CVs and stuff like that. Then, I also, had helped some people remove impediments, worked on the team wiki, and then, created our team charter on Miro. I was also in the driving seat, guys, click here, let's do it this way and everything. So yeah, and here are some screenshots, screenshot of our team charter. Here's a screenshot of our skills matrix, which I created. Then screenshot of our capacity planning sheet that I created as well. I did one for the whole team and another for the core development team. And then here is our team wiki. Then of course the session that I facilitated, which was last week, I thought about ChatGPT. I also mentioned some things about 11 Labs, about Midjourney, and some other AI tools like that. And on the call, some people were able to get some stuff done by themselves, which I believe they were better for. And then finally, I also started assisting the admins, to get some tasks done, like uploading videos on YouTube and Prep Major. This was, well outside of what I was typically doing in the internship, but it's been a nice experience and I enjoyed doing it. And yeah, moving on to Ade. Is Ade on the call? Ade, are you on the call? Okay, I doubt it. So I'll just move on from Ade, and then Omopolariwa, are you on the call? Omopolariwa didn't call. Okay, Ruby, guys, please don't fall my hand. All right. So I'll also move on from Omopolariwa. Hopefully, we can come back to her. Israel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. Inkalu Israel, BA. The overview of what we did during the 3 sprints is Azure DevOps setup, elicitation and user story, wireframe, microservice, gap analysis, use case, and Jira setup. So my first week was really challenging, but thank God it went well. So we met with our product owner to gather requirements for the project. We're able to organize our product backlog based on prioritization provided by the PO. I was able to write some of the user stories allocated to me or assigned to me. I was able to build some wireframes for the acceptance criteria also to share more light, so to say, about on the acceptance criteria, just like the prototype. we were able to review the user story with other teammates and some of our bodies. Then some of the stories were moved from in BA to BA done. And yeah, I was the first person to present during spring refinement for my team, which I was really proud of. So yeah, I was able to talk to other stakeholders and able to defend and take corrections on our user stories. The next slide, please. Yeah, so wireframe, I just wrote some the meaning of wireframe and what it does. Wireframe helps to clarify the concept of design, gather feedback, and ensure that everyone involved has a understanding of the project direction and all. So this is a wireframe I worked on. Then we did Visio. We're able to work on Visio. Yeah, this is one we worked on. The next slide. So gap analysis. Yeah, gap analysis is a process used to assess and compare the current state of an organization or system with its desired future. So you're comparing the current state and what the future is going to look like, and you're looking for the gap in between the current state and the future. Next slide, please. Yeah, so those are the steps the typical steps involved. Next slide. Next slide. So we were able to use do some use cases. A use case is a concept commonly used in software development, system engineering, and business analysis to desire the interaction between an actor. Can you go back, please? Sorry, Daniel. An actor, which is the user, and a system under consideration. So it consists of a description of specific goal and tasks that a user wants to accomplish, along with the steps and interaction involved in achieving that goal. The next slide. So this was a use case diagram that we worked on. So it's not clear enough. Then we're able to set up our Jira. Yeah, I believe that was the last setup we did. Next slide. Yeah, thank you.
Ogochukwu, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. Ogochukwu, your voice is not clear.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Ogochukwu Okoye. Yeah, an overview of everything that has happened from the sprint 0 to date. It has been from the beginning, the user story elicitation. It was not easy for me from the beginning of trying to understand the user story, but as time goes on, I started understanding it, and I was assigned some user story in the Azure DevOps to do, and which I did like 2 of them. And also, I've also participated in the meetings regarding the UAT with my colleague, and we actually worked on it. Concerning the Basanic, I've actually still worked on it, and the visual continue to progress on what I'm doing. And also, I look at the process, the gap analysis. That's the place I tend to work on more, so I can have a broader knowledge of it. And apart from that, everything so far, it has been good. I tend to looking into more of it, and then try to make my knowledge of the business analysis progress. Thank you.
Ogochukwu, are you still there? Hello, Ogochukwu.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, you went off. Are you still continuing with the rest of the slides?
Yeah, I said my user story, I did do use 2 of the user story in the backlog, as well as the Balsamic. The user story which I did was, the wireframe, sorry, that which I did was regarding the, can I see it? Sorry, I'm using my phone, so I can't see it well.
Okay, no, I guess you already did a rundown of everything. So I've just shown the screenshots.
Yeah. So
Yes.
regarding regarding the role quiz. So I actually did my user story, and as I said, the user story in the beginning, as I said, was a little bit of struggle, but then I'm kind of understanding it more and more, even as I progress more. So, and every other thing that I've been doing, we are open to Jira, the gap analysis. I intend to do more on gap analysis and the process map. So everything so far has been fine. And I tend to keep working with my team as we will progress to the next level. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, Cordelia, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cordelia BA. Can you please go to the next slide? So this is a high-level overview of what I've learned so far from Sprint 0 to Sprint 3. So I've learned about sprint planning demo, creating team charter using Miro, Agile board setup, product know who is a product owner and elicitation of requirement. You learned about writing user story, where we looked at epic features, PBI, and acceptance criteria. And I also learned how to create, wireframe using Balsamiq, installation of Visio, and how to create process map. And we also had a section on PowerPoint. And also I learned about gap analysis, use case, and JIRA setup. Can you please go to the next slide? So these are the tasks that I carried between Sprint 0 and Sprint 3. So requirement gathering and elicitation with a PO was one of the tasks I carried out. Creating process map, use case diagram with Microsoft Visio, and created team charter with a Scrum team using Miro. So I attended Scrum ceremonies, i.e. the daily stand-up, the sprint retro, sprint demo, sprint planning, sprint refinement, team meetings with stakeholders and Microsoft Teams, installed various tools like Balsamiq, Azure DevOps, Jira, Visio, PowerPoint, writing of user stories and acceptance criteria on Azure DevOps, and creating wireframes on Balsamiq. So the next slides down would just be like screenshots of some of the activities I was involved with. So this was the team charter we created as a team. So this is the BA Agile board. And so this is one of the user story and acceptance criteria I wrote. And the next one is also one of them that I wrote as well. And this is also one of the user story and acceptance criteria I did, and one of them as well. So the next slide would be on wireframe. So this is the wireframe I tried to create for this user story. And this is another one. And this is just a quick overview of using Visio to create process map, and learns what process map is. And this is just a pictorial diagram of what a process map looks like. And this is gap analysis as well, just giving an overview of what gap analysis is. And that's a pictorial diagram just telling you about where you are in a business, where you want to be. In between is the gap or the impediment, those things stopping you, you have to look at. So this is a use case. What is a use case diagram? That's was a use case, that's the overview, and that is a diagram of what a use case diagram is supposed to look like. And this is the BA repository, and some of the feedback or some of the things I've written there so far, that's just a screenshot of it. So that's an overview of what I've been doing from Sprint 0 to Sprint 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Tilda, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
All right, so I will be letting you know when to go to the next slide by just saying next, so that I don't say a whole full sentence. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tilda. I am a member of Team Ruby. I'm a DA. So I will be focusing more on this current sprint, which is Sprint 3, because the sprint has given me the opportunity to actually put together everything I have learned from the start of the internship upward onto this point in the various projects and exercises that had to be completed during the sprint. So during the sprint, some of the tools we used as usual is Excel, Tableau, and SQL. And I was able to complete various data consolidation, manipulation, visualization, extraction, and analysis tasks. Next, please. So some of the tasks carried out was create backlog items for tasks that needed to be completed, consolidated clients' data from various sources in Excel, created a pivot table for HR director. Again, these were exercises. Created a pivot table for finance director, transformed client, which was a UK bank, customer data into various visualization, created parameters on Tableau, created group bin, filtered data on SQL, concatenated data on SQL, data aggregation on SQL, and created Jira account and practice with it. Next, please. So this is some of the backlog items that I had to complete, and they're currently undone. Next, please. So again, some of the things that had to be completed during the sprint, create pivot table for an HR director. Next, please. Just keep going next. Again, some of the items that had to be completed. Yes, so this is the first client that we had to work with. Again, it was an exercise, so it's not a real client, but let's take it to be a real client, ABC company. So they had various data in various systems that they wanted collated and consolidated and in a central system. So, and also the HR director and the finance director wanted a pivot table to be able to analyze how many leave allowance have been taken from employees and those that overtaken the leave allowance that were allocated to them. Next, please. So here you see some of the things they wanted consolidated in a centralized location as opposed to be in several systems. Like the name of the employee, they wanted it to be in the same system as the employee ID, the employment type, whether they were full-time or part-time, the leave they were entitled to based on their employment type, the leave they're taking so far, and those that are taking more than they were required to take or they were allocated. Next, please. As you can see this is when the tax had been completed. I was able to put everything in one centralized sheet so that they can put it in one centralized system. The ones that were part-time in the employment fee column, you can see I also indicated that in red so that they'll be able to stand out for the client. And those that had taken more days than they were allocated, you see that in yellow, and the client wanted that to be written in check to show that these are the people that are taking more than they were being allocated. Next, please. So this was the pivot table that was requested by the HR director. They wanted to know how many people are taking more annual leave than they were required, which you can see here was 71 people based on the code they wanted us to put in the system, which was check. 71 people are taking more leave than they were allocated based on their employment type, and 992 people were still within or are taking exactly the allowance they were given. So we also have a chart for them in display so they can better understand the data. Next, please. Again, this is a breakdown of the people that are taking allowance, taking either too much, you can see a negative, and the people that were within as well. Next, please. And this was for the finance director, wanted to have a collation of all the people that still had days left, a total of how many days were left when you put all the employees together for full-time and for part-time. And we have a chart to display that for their better understanding as well. Next, please. So we worked with another client, a UK bank. Again, it was an exercise. And they wanted to better understand their customers to make better decisions for themselves as a business. And one of the visualization they wanted was to be able to see how their customers are scattered over the different regions where their banks are located. Next, please. And we also have demographic visualization of the genders of their customers. Next, please. The age distribution of their customers as well. And this was where we were able to use age beans and parameter in Tableau. As you can see, the graph is not giving every date of every customer, but it's giving you a group like from the age 15 to 20. And that can also be changed if you just want to look from age 10 to age 19, you want to look at a 10-year difference between the ages as well. So that's the use of beans and parameter. Next, please. And that was also used when we were looking at the distribution of their balances, what balances the customers have in their bank. We can also use parameter and group if we wanted to see the visualization differently. Next, please. And in SQL, we did data filtering, which helps us better understand our data. If we wanted to just see data within a particular range, if we wanted to see data assembled in a different way, like if you look at the tax amount, which I circled in red, you'll see it's in descending order. So that's how ways you can write codes and present information to make it easy for your clients to understand their data. Next, please. We also did data concatenation, which is pretty much creating new columns. In the first column, you'll see that we have first name, middle name, and last name. But if we want the data to be presented in a different way, the full name, we can bring in those two columns and joined it together by coding them, which you can see displayed on the right side. That's something we can also do, and we've been working on SQL as well. Next, please. And we did data aggregation, which is just being able to do average, summing up, and of data, which is some of the codes you can see in the slide as well. Next, please. And I also this week, the sprint worked on opening the Jira account and practicing on using the tool as well. So that's been it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hilda. Salome, let's go.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Salome Kingsley, BA. So here is an overview of my journey from Sprint 0 to Sprint 3. My accomplishment throughout the journey, what I've learned about elicitation of requirements, writing of user story, acceptance criteria, and illustrating user story acceptance criteria in wireframes using Basmatic, using Balsamiq tool. I've also learned about gap analysis, also process map, use case, user acceptance testing, which is UAT. I've also learned about working in an agile environment, which I have been like some of the interviews I have done so far. They'll be asking me, have you worked in an agile environment? And this is it. This is me working in an agile environment, and it has been an interesting one. Next slide. Yeah, the things I've participated in the daily stand-up, sprint refinements, sprint planning, retrospective, requirements gathering with our POs and the BAs, clarity meeting with our XM, QAs, and developer, general meeting with my team members. Next slide, please. Also, the tools I've learned so far from Sprint 0 to Sprint 3. I've learned how to use Azure DevOps. I've learned how to use Miro. I've learned how to use Microsoft Visio. I've learned how to use Balsamiq. I've learned how to use Microsoft Teams, Microsoft PowerPoint, and Jira. Next slide, please. And so far, these are the things I've worked on and I have participated on. Here is the team charter and also the sprint refinements and everything. Yeah, that was what I participated on in the Scrum and Sprint list. Here is the artifact on Jira. I've learned how to use Jira, and I also went back on my own to learn how to work an overview on how to go about it. I was able to populate my backlog, and also I was able to write my user story and acceptance criteria on payment page. Also on the Azure DevOps, I was able to populate some of the most or some of our PBI. I was able to write user story on it, acceptance criteria, and also was able to bring in my illustration on wireframes into my Azure DevOps. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the samples, a screenshot of what I've been doing in my Azure DevOps. This is user story on, this is my wiki board where I populated what we did about from Sprint 0 to Sprint 3. This is the listation of requirements in our Sprint 1. Then I have a listation of requirements in Sprint 2. I also have definition of done and definition of get ready. Next slide, please. Here also, I was able to practice and learn about use case. This is what I was able to come up with. I did a practice on use case diagram on learning management system. This is an overview of what I did on my own. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is another illustration of what I practiced on my own use case diagram on library booking system. The next slide, please. And yeah, this is also a use case on use case on student journey of prep major. Here, this use case, you basically have to use Microsoft Visio, even though you can use other tools, but we are taught how to use Microsoft Visio. And this is me working on it and trying to navigate how all those work. Next slide. Yeah, this is me practicing on process map. Yeah, I was able to do some illustration on student journey of prep major, and this is what I was able to come up with. Next slide. Also, I did more work on process map, and I did on learning management system, and this is what I was able to come up with during my practice. Next slide. Okay, yeah, this is me trying to working on UAT, user acceptance testing, and this is a screenshot of when the PBIs are in UAT done, and this is me trying to make sure that the QAs and the developers, they actually did what was in the user story and acceptance criteria. Next slide. Okay, these are some of the user stories and acceptance criteria and wireframe I worked on. Here I did on privacy policy. This is the user story, this is the acceptance criteria, and this is the wireframe I worked on. Next slide. Yeah, this is user story, acceptance criteria, and wireframe on footer. I wrote the user story, the acceptance criteria, and I also did the illustration of the footer using the Basama tool. Here I also wrote the user story on messages, acceptance criteria, and also did the wireframe. Next slide. I also work on user story on landing page. Yeah, and login, sorry. Yeah, where we'll have scenario 1, scenario 2 of the acceptance criteria. Next slide. And here I did the wireframe also on login. Next slide. Okay, here I also work on the landing page of the user story acceptance criteria, and I also was able to do the wireframe. Here I did the user story and the acceptance criteria. This is the screenshot of what I've done. Next slide. Okay, yeah, I decided to do more work on my wireframe using our tools. So I was able to do the site navigation panel. The first slide, you talk of the major site navigation panel, and the next one, you talk of the collapsible site navigation panel. That is it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Salome. Meanwhile, you owe us some basmati rice, okay? All right, Oluwatosin, you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tosin Bihe. So during this internship, the areas I've been able to cover as outlined above. Next slide, please. So above is also the spring calendar we had. Next slide, please. So I was able to participate in the daily stand-up ceremony or the meeting, and these are also above were the things that my understanding of why I was part of that workshop. Next slide, please. Spring planning, next slide. As explained above, my understanding of the things that I was able to gather from requirement elicitation or elicitation of requirement. Next slide, please. And also the different types of techniques we have for elicitation. Next slide, please. Also, part of the techniques that we have that can be used while trying to elicitate. Next slide, please. During that was sprint 0. For sprint 1, our PO was able to actually give us 6 requirements, and I took part of, out of the 6, I was involved in 2. Next slide, please. And below are the deliverables. So again, the header, the user stories, and the acceptance criteria, my wireframe by the side. Next slide, please. So again, I was also involved in, or I personally did sign up page, user story, acceptance criteria, and also the wireframe beside it. Next slide, please. For sprint two, the PO also gave us 7 requirements. Again, in this during this sprint, I was involved in 2. Next slide, please. So above again is my user story and wireframe for top courses. Next slide, please. And also for enroll courses, I brought my user stories, my acceptance criteria, and the wireframe. Next slide, please. For sprint 3, we had only 1 requirement. I was able to also provide the user story and the acceptance criteria. And I would like to say that all the user stories and the acceptance criteria that I got involved in are all approved. Next slide, please. So again, that's the payment page, you know, for sprint 3, and that has been approved already. Next slide, please. For Microsoft Visio, part of what I also, the workshop that I took part in, or that I was able to use the knowledge that I gathered to put in this extra work on my own, patient emergency treatment. So which actually outlines or explains what happens right from when the patient call out to the GP surgery, from the GP surgery, how the issue is being triaged to the doctor or to the nurses in charge, and how the treatment is being provided as applicable. Next slide, please. And in a case where the patient has an urgent treatment, which is next very similar to A&E setting, I was able to use the knowledge I gathered from the use of Visio to interpret that. Next slide, please. The user case diagram, again, you know, from what we were taught, I was able to use that even to practice on the learning management system. Next slide, please. Again, I was able to use that for the library management system. Next slide, please. The gap analysis that actually tells us of will help us to analyze or understand an organization issue or the pain points of where they are and where they want to be. And that at that state, we're able to analyze the current state, the previous state, and also where the future state. When trying to do that, we identify the gap by comparing the current state versus the ideas, and then we'll be able to create, the ideas, or, create solutions to where the issues are, the pain points are, and then plan on how to implement those issues, and then we'll be able to put them into implementation. Next slide, please. Jira, I was able to also use the knowledge gathered or to put this board in place on my own. Next slide, please. I was part of the team with BA team that actually completed the user acceptance testing. So that's one of my users, that's one of the requirements that was given by our PO that was taken, or the user case and the user's stories rather, and the acceptance criteria that has been moved to UAT. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it. Thank you. Thanks for listening. That's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Fumilayo, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Fumilayo. Oh, please, I can't see it. Okay. My journey so far in this program has been a lovely one. It started with some trainings on how to use Azure DevOps. And this is what I've been able to do, writing some epic stories on whatever we have done. So this is my own impact. This is the stories I've written. Please, the next step. The next slide, please. So in this program, we went through 3 courses. First, we have Tableau. And what we did so far on Tableau, we did the Tableau setup, downloading and installation, also creating a public profile. The next one, please. So for each workshop on Tableau, there are some starts of processes that we go through, which I call the initialization. The first thing we do each workshop, we open our Tableau, then we upload the data set. The next one. Then data set, after uploading the data set, we go to the sheet 1, and from the sheet 1, it will open us to the Tableau field. Please, the next one. So this is the major field where the visualization occurs. What we majorly do here is that we pick from the table whatever we want to visualize, and we drop in the column and or on the row. So majorly we work with the math and the show me. So we explore our data, visualizing them through the show me and the math. So that is what we have. Those are the first steps we do when we in Tableau. So through these processes, we have been able to do some visualization. Please, the next slide. And through the previous processes, we have been able to do some visualization, which are the area graph, the maps. The next one, scatter plot, bar chart. Next place, and dashboard. The next one. So after that, I practiced on my own. I was able to generate some data from Azure DevOps. From what we have done so far with my team members, I generate tags on Excel, Tableau, the general tags, and the SQL. So I generated this data to visualize what we have done so far on Azure DevOps. Please, the next one. So from this now, this is just an overview of what we have done so far. From my own, I was able to lay my hand on 5 tags, and these are the tags down. The next one, please. So this is also another visualization. This is to tell us that majority of the team member participated in Excel. The next one. And last week or this week, this concluded with, we worked on beans. It's just grouping individual items so as to see them properly. The next one, please. We also worked on parameters. These parameters, it makes editing very easy. So you don't have to go back to the steps you have done before. From this parameter here, you can just put whatever you want to do, and it immediately reflects on what you have done. The next one. So that's what we have done so far on Tableau. On Excel, these are what we have done. The VLOOKUP, the HLOOKUP, sorting. Please, the next slide. So these are the formulas we apply to every data set given to us to perform sorting, to perform the analysis we want to do on our data. So we have done VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, if. The next one, please. So this is also the pivot table and pivot chart. Sorry for the wrong label. So this is the second lecture, the third one now. So on the third lecture, we did various ifs, the match, and the index. So these are the formulas we applied on our data set. The next one, please. Next. So SQL. So these are what we have done so far. Yesterday, we did some queries. We ran some queries. We did conditions known as where. We did filter known as group by, sort known as order by, and we also worked on dates. Next slide, please. So on my own, I try to look back what we have done so far, the lectures, the activities, the time it took us for each lectures, and the courses. So using the knowledge I got from Excel, the pivot table, I generated this, I sorted it out, and I came with this table. Please, the next one. So I've been able to visualize what we have done so far. From this, it indicates that on our Tableau, we had 4 workshops, sorry. We had 4 workshops on our Tableau, an SQL 3 workshop, Excel 3 workshops. And the next visualization, just to tell us the activities done so far. We have gone so far on Excel, on Tableau. We are just coming up on SQL. That is all we have done. Thank you so much.
Worked very hard.
All right, Babatunde, are you there?
Yes, I am. And good evening, everyone. My name is Babatunde, and I'm a QA. My job title, my purpose of my job was to test the functionality of the website that you're seeing before you, using manual testing, using Azure DevOps, and then automated testing using SpecFlow and Cucumber with Selenium WebDriver, using C# as the programming language. Now, this is the screenshot of the Azure DevOps board that was used. Next slide, please. So some of the test cases written in testing this website, this is the number of test cases that were written. Next case, please. Then for manual testing, some of the test cases that was used to test this website includes, among others, some of the ones that are listed. Could you go to the next slide, please? So this is some of the test cases that were written. Like this is just to verify the registered user cannot log in. Could you keep going on, please? These are just screenshots of some of the test cases that were written. Next slide. Yeah, this one's like verifying user can view top courses in the wish list. This one is about contact or verify user can see the contact us in the footer. This was verify user can see valid case of verifying user can see the privacy policy in the policy button in the footer. Next slide, please. So this is the runner on the Azure DevOps. When you want to carry out manual testing, this is the runner that is used for carrying it out. Could you go to the next slide, please? So this is, you just tick for it, it passes and a cross X, red X that it failed. This is a screenshot of one of the tests that were carried out and it failed. And the reason why it failed was because the courses was not listed on the course page. Could you go to the next slide, please? So this is the bug that was created. And could you go to the next slide, please? And you can see for this one, there's no courses listed. That was the reason why you take this is just the screenshot of the website. Next slide, please. So this is another, this is a screenshot of another case of a bug that was also created. Next slide, please. And this is a screenshot of the runner showing that it failed. Could you go on the next slide, please? And this is on it, it's something to do with About Us, and there was no About Us button here. So this screenshot of the website. Next slide, please. This is a bug that was created for it. Next slide, please. So automated testing, this is some of the test, automation testing that was carried out. Next slide, please, among others. So this is feature file for valid login. Next slide, please. This is some of the feature files that were written. Next, this is for valid sign up. Next slide, please. This is for forgot password. Next slide, please. This is for invalid login. Next slide, please. So this is step definition of what a screenshot of the definition that was used, which step definition is just taking the using the class, taking the class object for the class page object and accessing your methods from the page object in your step definition. And this is a screenshot of your page object where you just you select the where you have you select your elements, and then you have you can also write the methods. It's also in page object. Next slide, please. This is the test log to show that it passes. One of the ways you find out if you have a fault. This is one of the ways you find out where the fault is. Next slide, please. So these are some. This is just test logs for various shots. Next slide, please. This is some various. Next slide, please. So this is test log for invalid login. Keep going, please. Yeah, next slide, please. These are all very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Babatunde. Christiana, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Christiana. So I'm just gonna give an overview of what I've learned so far since the beginning of Sprint 1. Please, can you go to the next slide? So I'm gonna start with Excel, Sprint 1. We learned about filters and pivot table. So we're provided with an Excel file, which I imported in, which was opened on Excel. which is the first file you're seeing in color on your right, on your left, I mean. Then we worked on pivot tables, which is what you can see in the middle. So, and how to manipulate the pivot tables is what you can see on your extreme left, which is titled pivot table fields. Next slide, please. Here we can see how slicers work and graph. So we're taught that in Excel, we can use slicers, which is another means of filter that makes it easy for you to see what you have. You can use it on the exact sheet and you can use it on your pivot table. As you can see on the pivot table on the right, you can see I just highlighted snowboards, and all the products showing on that side has to do with snowboards. And also you can also use it on your graph, which you can see everything showing on the graph is also snowboards. Can you go to the next slide, please? Sprint 2, we worked on VLOOKUP. We're provided with a file, which is the actual file is what you can see on the left, which on the right, which is titled employee, last name and first name. And the pay report is the generated reports we use the VLOOKUP to calculate. So you can see on the formula, in the formula bar, how to write the VLOOKUP formula. Can you go to the next slide, please? And this is a closer look of how to, what the VLOOKUP formula is like, the lookup value and all. And the next slide, please. So this is another way to write the formula. Instead, if you don't want to write it, the VLOOKUP, the way I showed earlier, you can write it this way, getting the VLOOKUP table. Can you go to the next slide, please? And also, we inputted the pay band. Sorry, can you go to the previous slide? Sorry. Sorry, I just want to explain that on the VLOOKUP, you can see that in the formula, there's a false statement, which just explains that it's just a means of explaining whether you want the actual value of what you're looking for. Can you go to the next slide? So the reason for this other slide is to show that in this formula, we have a true statement, which is just to show that you can get a value between a certain range, which is what you see, which is what we use for the pay band. Can you go to the next slide, please? This is HLOOKUP. The first one showing VLOOKUP is the horizontal calculation, and HLOOKUP is the vertical calculation, of which the HLOOKUP is the horizontal calculation. Is the same way. You can see the formula at the top. You just calculate horizontally. Next slide, please. This is the if statement. You can use this to is used for when you're putting a range. You can use it for a range of answers. So like if you want something greater than 10, it gives you a yes. And if you want it anything less than 10, it returns a no. So this is a way of writing it using the formula bar. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Yeah, and this is Tableau, what we have achieved so far in Tableau. This is an overview of what I have on my URL. Can you go to the next slide? This is our first, on the first sprint in Tableau, we did sales representatives. And this graph was the first thing we did, which shows the sales of every salesperson and how far they've gone and how much sales they've achieved within that certain period of time. Please can you go to the next slide? Certain regions, I'm sorry. And this is just to show how to create your own calculated field. Yeah. So this has to show how you write your own calculated field to add it to your to add it to what you have before. So for this, we needed to calculate the total sales. So this is how to put in your own formula on Tableau. Next slide, please. And this is a graph we created. And on the right side, you can see how it is grouped by each color, what each color means, age, and also the gender is a filter, which can show either for all, or if you just want to see the men or the women, it's just an unemployment statistics within a period of time. Next slide, please. And this is our first dashboard that we created with sales within the whole of Europe and a scattered plot. So this is just putting two different things in one dashboard to show like a summary of the sales in Europe. Next slide, please. This is what we have done so far in SQL. We did the installation on the first week, and second week we were still working on the installation. So second week we worked on the installation, and this third week we're able to finish the installation and continue, and we're able to work on writing queries on our own. So far I've been able to come up with just few queries that I'm able to show in this slide. Please, can you go to the next slide? So this slide shows how to write your query ordering by territory ID. Next slide. This is just to show the order, the distance, how to write distance, and just how to write different things using SQL. Next slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shegun, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, this is Olusegun. Yeah, this is what I've learned so far, although it's more than this. How to write test cases, automation, how to set up test environment, how to create framework, web, debug, mobile, and web manual testing. This is our test cases written on Excel. Next, please. And this is some of the test cases written on Azure DevOps. Next, please. And this is some of the test cases. Next, please. Yeah, this is that. Yeah, this is when I carry out the manual testing on some of the test cases written. And this particular one passed. And one, please. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. Next, please. Can you go back? There's one particular one I carry out, and this particular one failed. So I create a bug on it because the scores are not displayed. So this particular one failed. Yeah, next please. Next please. Yeah, and this is my automation that I'm trying to carry out. But I get stuck here, then I leave it. Then I'm still trying to find my myself around the automation, which I'm really pushing myself hard to get around it. Next, please. That's it. Yeah, that's a place. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so thank you so much. That was the one that we got, but however, Chi, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so we couldn't get Chi's presentation in on time, so she's just gonna quickly present her screen and then we can round it off there. So Chi, please go for it. It's just gonna take a couple of minutes and then we'll be done. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Chi Ogamba. I'm a Scrum Master. I'll quickly go through the overview of what I've done so far. So first of all, I have stakeholder management, team coordination, key achievement, and conclusion. So during the course of this internship, I collaborated with other Scrum Masters and team members to resolve issues raised by the stakeholders. This was done through gathering of feedback and making changes where required. So this is one of the communication, one of the stakeholder when we are trying to solve the problem of prep major platform. So on team collaboration, I effectively collaborated and communicated with the team members during the onboarding period. And I also collaborated with the Scrum Masters, and we together implemented actions to resolve problems on prep major platform. And I also had a one-on-one call with team members, the DS, the BAs, the QAs on several occasions to make sure that the team are on the same page. I also contributed to the populating our page, our wiki page, and maintaining the wiki board. So my key achievements, I'll first of all start with the metrics. I can confidently configure the burn down chart, burn up chart, velocity chart, and I can proficiently interpret them. So this is our burn up chart and burn down chart for the last sprint. So my next achievement is proficiency in using some of the project management tools. I can confidently set up, configure, and navigate through the project management tools and whiteboard like Jira, Azure DevOps, and Miro board. So this is the Miro board when I joined the team to create a team charter. So this is me trying to work on Jira board after we were taught about Jira last time. I created some epic and stories. I can confidently navigate through Jira board. So this was our last sprint on Azure DevOps. So my next achievement is Scrum event. I have facilitated sprint planning event and product backlog refinement, daily Scrum and sprint retrospective events. I can say I can confidently facilitate all of these events. So on continuous improvement, I personally, after the workshop we had on capacity planning, I personally initiated a knowledge sharing session with other Scrum Masters. I taught them what I learned and I shared my knowledge with them. This is what I created. I was able to factor in our members that are, some of the team members that are in other time zone, so that we consider them when we are planning any of our team events. That's why you can see here onshore, offshore team members. So part of the continuous improvement is that I participated in the knowledge sharing section with Daniel, where he taught us how to use ChatGPT smartly to do our tasks. So in conclusion, I will say my aim of joining Blue Sky Citadel is to gain experience as a Scrum Master, and 85% of this has been achieved. I'm looking forward to interview preparation and subsequent job hunting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Did you want to say something?
No, that's fine. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and well done. So I'll stop this recording, and then I'll give the feedback from there. Just a moment, please.